New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. Come expand your spiritual journey. Join us for Just the Talk. Sundays, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Experience Unity Kitchener and Ottawa. Center for Spiritual Living Midtown. Center for Spiritual Living Denver. Unity of Garden Park. New Thought Philadelphia. The Sunshine Cathedral. Unity of Savannah. And the Ohm Center for Spiritual Living. Come unleash your spiritual potential with New Thought Media Network.
Hey everybody, Tracy Brown here, and it is time for the Inclusive Church right here on the New Thought Media Network. Every Tuesday at noon Mountain Time, we come together and actually consider what does it really mean to be an inclusive church? How can I be a leader who inspires and models what it takes to be inclusive? And how does being inclusive relate to or reflect the spiritual principles and values that we teach in my church? And you'll notice I use the word church very intentionally because for some reason, over time, there has been a pattern of people thinking church is a bad word, especially when we think of church as just a piece of property, or when we think of church as the traditional forms of church. But we are talking about church as a community of people who come together to teach and practice and learn and model the spiritual values that are shared. If you are watching for the first time live, then you can be just like Anita and say hello, good morning, good afternoon, what's up, Grand Rising, and let me know that you're there. But more importantly, if you have a comment or question during the show, most weeks, use your chat or the comment section in order to ask a question or add a comment. I say that automatically every week, and as it was coming out of my mouth, I realized that today is a little different. In fact, this entire month is a little different because I won't be following the chat throughout our time together. Because this month, in the month of May 2026, each week we are actually doing spiritual practice together. So last month there was a big focus on what you should and shouldn't do. Here are some tips to follow. Here's something to try on. Here's a conversation to have. And it was really heavy on what are things you can do or checklists that you need to keep in mind. But this month, we're taking a deep collective breath and settling into that foundation that inspires most of us to do this work anyway. So the theme for the month really is inclusive leadership is a spiritual practice. Inclusive leadership is a spiritual practice, and each week we are participating in group spiritual practice together that reinforces what we already know and just locks it in a little bit more. So, the idea and the theme for today, let me remind myself, it's week 2, and it is all about holding myself, each one of us holding ourselves accountable. How can we own our commitment to be inclusive without being defensive about it? Like, how do I hold myself accountable without giving a lot of excuses, without um, beating myself up when I make a mistake? Like, accountability is not punitive. Accountability is important because it allows us to calibrate where we are and what we do next. And in fact, inclusion without accountability is simply an aspiration. You will not have transformation. You will not get to transformation if you don't have some level of accountability. And so even as we consider, even as we consider the whole idea of holding ourselves accountable and being inclusive, we want it to be more than just some aspiration, something we aspire to. But how do I check that I am actually doing that? Now, I could very easily turn that into 30 minutes of tips and advice. But this month, we are going to ground ourselves in the spiritual realm for how we want to hold ourselves accountable. So today, we practice telling ourselves the truth with compassion, of course, but without avoiding the messy parts or the parts that are uncomfortable for us. So let's just get ourselves here. Let's, take a few deep breaths. Maybe put your hands on your heart, or one hand on your heart and one on your abdomen, and breathe. Take a really slow inhale and a very slow, relaxed exhale. Do that breathing 2 or 3 times, checking in for where you might feel resistance. Where do you feel resistance? And maybe no place, which would be great. But allow yourself to simply breathe. We do this spiritual practice together. And we are also doing it individually. So think of a moment when someone gave you feedback that maybe you weren't as inclusive, or feedback that had a cultural element to it. On the next breath, just see what comes to mind when you have received or been in a conversation where feedback was given that you weren't as inclusive, or the person around you wasn't as inclusive as you thought. Or think of a moment when you witnessed harm being done but you said nothing. Breathe. You observed harm, but you said or did nothing about it. Did you explain? Did you defend your action or the action of someone else? Did you minimize it? Oh, it's not that big of a deal. How did you respond in a real life situation that was not an example of inclusion and there was harm or there was no judgment? Do not judge yourself. Simply be aware. Breathing, staying in a relaxed, no rush energy. Take this in. Inclusion requires a higher standard. Inclusion requires moving beyond what used to be the default. Inclusion requires attention to impact more than intention. Because in order to grow, there is some discomfort. So quietly or silently to yourself, repeat after me. I release the need to be right. I choose to be responsible. I can repair what I did not intend. Accountability makes me a stronger leader. I release the need to be right. I choose to be responsible. I can repair what I did not intend. Accountability makes me a stronger leader. And as we go deeper into this spiritual practice we are doing together, see yourself in a situation where you are receiving difficult feedback. You have just said or done something inappropriate, unintentionally maybe, and someone is giving you the gift of feedback. You listen, see yourself taking it in, see yourself pausing before speaking, see yourself taking a very deep breath and maintaining eye contact with the person who is giving you feedback. And see and hear yourself saying, "Thank you. I want to understand. Thank you for giving me this feedback. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. I want to learn from this." Hear that in your own voice, and maybe you have a different way of saying it. But thank you. Thank you for this feedback, even though it's hard for me to hear. And settle again in your breath, in your breathing. Deep, slow breath in. Relaxing, slow breath out. And let these affirmations wash over you. I am strong enough to grow. I welcome awareness. I transform by knowing the truth. I am strong enough to grow. I welcome greater awareness. I transform through knowing the truth. And for the next 20 or 30 seconds, simply sit in the silence and see what comes forward for you. Listen with your ears, your heart, your energy. What does your higher wisdom have to say to you? Is there a past situation where you are willing or you feel like you need to revisit it or repair it? Is there a past situation where you recognize you were uncomfortable, but you learned from it? What comes forward from your higher wisdom about holding yourself accountable for being an inclusive leader? 10 more seconds. What a blessing it is to take just a few moments and remember how important it is to ground the commitment to being inclusive with a matching commitment to hold oneself accountable. Let's move from aspiration to transformation in our individual lives and in our churches. And begin to bring yourself back into full awareness and consciousness. Relaxing into any place where in your body you have tensed up, breathing gently into that tension, because it means a lot as you come back to full presence, to not only stop at saying, I value inclusion, but to also say, I take responsibility for my impact. Inclusion requires every one of us to not allow our intention to be an excuse, but instead to take full responsibility for the impact of what we say and what we do, and to hold ourselves accountable for what action needs to happen to become more inclusive or to repair any damage we may have done without knowing or without intending to, so that we can correct our mistakes, learn more, increase our awareness, and build truly effective and authentic relationships with one another. This month, the month of May in 2026, each week we will participate together in collective spiritual practice, looking at our individual opportunities to be more inclusive or to be more effective as a leader who is inclusive. And then we can take these practices into the way that we show up individually and collectively. This is the Inclusive Church right here on the New Thought Media Network. My name is Tracy Brown, and I am so glad that you joined into this practice today. My hope is that you will share the show with others and that you will also continue to participate. If you do have a quick comment or reflection on something that came forward for you during that spiritual practice, feel free to put it into the comments or into the chat. Thank you, Marjorie. I thank you for the thank you. I just think it's so important for us to not forget that this is not just work that we do because of politics. This is not just work that we do in reaction to bad things that we see in the news. We do this work and we are committed to being inclusive because in New Thought, we teach that every single being is a unique emanation of spirit, of God, of the creator of all life. And we teach that every person has value. And we teach that there are no mistakes in the essence, in the essential nature of each person. And we are all about representing the connection that we all have with one another because we have all been created by the one source of all light. And if we are going to teach these things, these principles of oneness, unity, harmony, and love, then we do need to remember to go back to our spiritual foundation again and again and again. And so this month of March, it is all about not the mental or intellectual foundation, but the embodiment from a spiritual foundation of making sure that we are practicing. So next week will be more of the same. We have a couple more weeks to go in the month of May. And please feel free to let me know how this is working for you, just as Marjorie has done. For more information between our shows, you can always visit stainedglassspirit.net, or you can search for Inclusive Church on Facebook and on YouTube. My name is Tracy Brown, and I hope to see you again next week for more Inclusive Church, right here on the New Thought Media Network.
Thanks for watching The Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown. Join us again next week at 12 noon Mountain Time.